Welcome back. So, the great debate in the book of Job has pretty much hit a brick wall. Job's friends are all out of accusations, and Job himself has run out of ways to defend his case. The air is just thick with tension. But right when it feels like it's all over, the entire story gets turned on its head. We are going to break down Job's final, incredibly powerful defense and the shocking arrival of a brand new voice that just changes everything.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into Job's dramatic oath of innocence, where he basically lays his whole life out on the table. Then this new character, Elihu, steps out of the shadows, and trust me, we'll see why he's kind of mad at everybody. After that, we'll get into Elihu's groundbreaking arguments, where he looks at suffering not as a punishment, but as a lesson, and defends God's justice from a whole new cosmic perspective.
So, after going round after round with his friends, Job is done. He's had enough. Chapter 31 isn't just another complaint. Oh no, this is his final, magnificent monologue. It's like he's taking the stand in the highest court you can imagine, delivering this formal oath of innocence to God and to his accusers.
And you got to pay attention to where he starts his defense. Not with his big public acts of charity, but with his inner life, a promise, a covenant that he made with his own eyes. This tells us his testimony isn't just going to be about what people saw him do. He is launching a full head-to-toe investigation of his own integrity, starting right at the source of temptation.
And from there, he just goes right down the list, building this airtight case. He talks about purity in his heart, honesty in his business deals, justice for his own servants, and real, deep compassion for the poor and the widowed. He insists he wasn't greedy and that he was even merciful to his enemies. He is just systematically tearing down this idea that some secret sin is what's causing all his suffering.
And here we go. This is the absolute climax of his entire speech. This is Job, a man in agony, standing his ground and basically demanding his day in court with God himself. He wants God to show up and read the charges because he is that confident in his own innocence. I mean, what an incredibly bold and powerful moment.
With that challenge just hanging in the air, the scripture gives us this simple final statement. Job has said everything he can say. He's defended his life, he's sworn his innocence, and he's called on God to answer. He rests his case.
This chapter really shows us who Job is. It's a testament to the power of integrity, that deep human need to be proven right, and, the spiritual value of really taking a hard look at yourself. Job isn't claiming to be perfect. He's showing a life that was just relentlessly committed to doing the right thing. But now that his case is rested, a totally new and unexpected chapter is about to kick off.
After Job's final words, there's just silence, a stunning silence. The big debate is over. But just as the dust is starting to settle, the story takes this sharp, unexpected turn. A new character, someone who has been quietly listening this whole time, is about to walk onto the scene and shake things up.
Now this verse right here is so important. Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they are officially out of arguments. They can't poke any holes in Job's oath, so they just stop talking. And this silence creates a vacuum, a space for a totally fresh perspective to finally be heard.
And into that vacuum steps Elihu. The text makes a big point of telling us he's a young man, an outsider who has been silently listening to this whole agonizing debate. Out of respect for his elders, he kept his mouth shut, but now he has clearly reached his breaking point.
But here's what makes Elihu so different. It's why he's angry. The friends, they were mad at Job for claiming he was righteous. Elihu, on the other hand, he's angry at Job for justifying himself more than God. And get this, he's just as angry at the friends, because for all their big speeches, they completely failed to actually defend God's honor.
So how does this young guy justify speaking up? Well, he makes this incredible claim. He says wisdom doesn't just come from being old and having a lot of experience. Real understanding, he argues, is a gift from God, an inspiration from the Almighty that can be given to anyone, young or old. He's basically saying, listen up because God has given me something to say. The takeaways from his entrance are huge. First, wisdom isn't just for the old. Second, there's such a thing as righteous anger that can push us to speak the truth. And finally, sometimes a total stalemate can only be broken by a fresh, outside perspective. Okay, so Elihu has the floor, and in his first speech, he doesn't just rehash the same old tired arguments. No, he introduces a radical new idea about suffering, one that nobody else, not Job and not his friends, had even thought of.
According to Elihu, God is always trying to talk to us. First, he speaks gently, through things like dreams and visions, to kind of warn us and steer us away from pride. But if that doesn't work, he uses a much louder megaphone: pain and suffering. So, suffering isn't just a punishment for something you did wrong, it's an active lesson from God.
And what's the goal of this painful lesson? This is where Elihu completely breaks from the other friends. He says the purpose is all about redemption. God uses suffering not to crush us, but to pull us back from the edge, to save our soul from the pit. This completely reframes suffering from a punishment into a severe but life-saving mercy.
What Elihu is presenting here is really a theology of hope. He sees suffering as a corrective tool, a way God actively communicates. It means God is deeply involved, not distant and uncaring. It suggests that even in our deepest pain, God is at work, trying to bring us back into the light.
So, after laying out this new idea of redemptive suffering, Elihu pivots. In chapter 34, he switches gears to directly defend God's character against some of Job's more heated accusations. He's about to confront Job's claims of divine injustice head-on.
Elihu doesn't beat around the bush. He directly quotes Job's frustration and puts the central question on the table. Job says, "I am righteous, but God has denied me justice." So, is it even possible for God to be unfair? This is the issue Elihu is determined to settle.
Elihu's answer is a firm, absolute no way. He declares that the very idea of God doing anything wicked is just unthinkable. The Almighty cannot twist justice. And why not? Because it's in God's very nature to give every person what their actions deserve. Justice isn't just something He does, it's who He is.
Ultimately, this whole section is a powerful statement on divine sovereignty. Elihu is arguing that God's justice is perfect by definition, even when it's totally beyond our limited human understanding. From his point of view, it's the height of foolishness for a created being to stand in judgment of the Creator.
Elihu now moves to his final point for us today. He takes on another one of Job's big complaints. What's the point of being good? What good does my righteousness do me if I'm going to suffer anyway? Elihu answers this by completely shifting our perspective, from a human one to a divine one.
Now, Elihu's logic here is staggering. He basically says, Job, look up at the clouds. God is so far above us that our actions don't actually affect Him. Your sin doesn't really harm God, and your righteousness doesn't give Him anything He needs. The real impact of our choices is horizontal. It deeply affects our fellow human beings. We pursue righteousness to benefit humanity, not to put God in our debt.
So Elihu has completely reshaped the entire conversation. He's tossed out the old arguments and presented suffering as a tool for redemption and God as perfectly just. He's challenged Job's self-righteousness and the friends' failed theology. It is a powerful, compelling case, but the big question hangs in the air. Is he right? Is this the final answer to the problem of suffering, or is there still more to this story?